Welcome everyone to a kind of different videos from what we normally make on this channel. I've just came back from the first of my 3 holidays that I'm going on this year to shoot new content for you, and I was away for about 2 weeks. And without spoiling too much, because obviously this will be the new material coming after the summer break in September, I can say that I went on another cruise, which will be obviously a lot of upcoming content from. But I also traveled around Europe a little bit in general, visited some big cities like London, for instance, so lots of new content coming up. We have reached, by the time of shooting this, 1,100 subscribers. I would like to start off by thanking you all so much for subscribing, watching our videos, liking the stuff, commenting, and helped us grow up to where we are at the moment. I feel very humble for that. However, I was naive enough to think that all hotels in Europe have stopped doing these deposit scams that they're doing and have been doing for years. And still, most hotels have. I would say that 95% of all the hotels in Europe have stopped doing this shit, but some are still on board. Although media has been covering this in documentaries, in newspapers, about this money laundering scam that the hotel chains are pulling. What I'm talking about is obviously the fact that you have booked a hotel room, you have maybe prepaid it, doesn't really matter, and when you show up to check in, they will ask you for a deposit of 50 euros or 50 pounds or whatever it is as a security. I mean, this is obviously bullshit. Why do they need that deposit? So, for instance, I make I would say 90% of all my bookings through booking.com. And they actually have an agreement with all the hotels that if, say, I trashed the room, I checked out and left without paying my bar tab or my restaurant tab or whatever, or I just cleansed the minibar, they have the right to charge me on the card that I provided. Also, however, let's say that they don't trust this. Let's say that, for instance, the hotels, well, they really don't believe that this card that I presented to booking, maybe it's not working anymore. Well, they can only ask me to swipe the card at arrival. This is what all hotels normally do this day, after the deposit scams have been opened up to public. So you see, I'm going to take an example. I arrived to the Chilworth, which is a 5-star hotel in London, and checked in. I already prepaid the room, so the gentleman asked me to swipe my card for security, and I obviously asked, which I always do, are you going to charge me for that? And he started laughing and he says, no, we're not going to charge you, we're not allowed to do that anymore. We used to do it, but obviously nowadays we can't. So we're just going to swipe your card for security reasons. So basically, I swipe my card and they have my credit card details. And in case I did something that, well, you know, didn't pay a tab or whatever, they could charge me on that card. Some hotels, they actually choose to charge you like €1, so they see that there is a real card with money on it and so on, and I'm totally fine with that as well. But why do I need to pay 50 pounds or euros or whatever? Because you see, this guy in the Chilworth actually told me that no, we're not allowed to do that anymore. Everyone nowadays knows that this is a scam. And it's the same thing in Sweden. We have made documentaries about it, and well, I've never been to a hotel after that that's actually asked me for a deposit. However, Radisson, which unfortunately is a hotel chain that I always liked, I've stayed numerous nights on Radisson's, they still do this deposit scam thing. And for what? Because you see, what is actually happening is that they don't need a security deposit. Like I already said, they have the rights through booking.com to charge me. They can just ask me to swipe my card for security reasons and they will have my card details. No, they're asking me for a loan. They're asking me as a private person to loan money to them so they can put it in a deposit and get interest rate out of it. And this is very weird in a way. And basically, most people, they use a credit card when they come to a hotel and they say, well, but you know, you get the money back and so on. Yeah, I know. And with a credit card, and especially if it's your company's or whatever, you don't have to care about it. But still, it is kind of weird, because even if you have a credit card, what's actually happening is that you loan money from your bank to loan out to them, and then they're gonna repay you the loan that you took so you can pay back your loan. However, during that time, they actually earned a lot of money on it, because they put in all the money they make during the day on all their hotels throughout the world in a bank account where they get interest rate. But when they pay you back, they pay back from the same like local cash machine that they took the payment from. So basically on paper, it says that, well, they took 50 from you, they're giving you 50 back. However, the money that they actually took from you is not longer there. It's in a safe deposit bank account where they get interest rate. However, I don't have a credit card. I have a debit card. I have a MasterCard debit card that I was provided with from Sweden. And when I actually pay a deposit, it actually takes me a week to get the money back, because it's bank days and it's always taking longer than they think. And this is kind of a huge problem to me, because if you are, say, like me, out traveling, say 20 days in a row and staying at different hotels every night, if I was supposed to pay 50 euros in deposit every night, I would have to take that into consideration when I actually make the budget, because that would be hundreds and hundreds of pounds or euros that I won't see in about 7 days. And that doesn't make sense. And like I say, for what? Normally when they ask you for a deposit, and I obviously always ask them, for what? They say, well, it's security for us, and you know, maybe you want something from the bar, maybe you want to have a tab, maybe you want to eat in the restaurant, maybe you want something from the minibar. Yeah, well, then what? Well, then, you know, that deposit will cover that. No, it won't. I've done that on many occasions. So you would think, because they kind of say it in a way that, well, you give a deposit of 50 euros, and then if you want to have a bar tab for, say, 20 euros, you would assume that the day after, when you check out, they would say, which they kind of did when you checked in, that, well, sir, you have a deposit of 50 and you have a bar tab of 20, so we will release 30 euros back to your bank account. Nope, they don't. They're gonna say, for some reason, that you have to pay the bar tab, and then they're gonna give you your 50 euros back. And that's kind of obvious when you know what's really going on. Because you see, the deposit that you gave them is no longer there. It's somewhere else, and they need the interest of it. So they want you to pay for your bar tab, just like anyone would do the day after, and then they will get your deposit back from another system. And also, like, first of all, no one does minibars anymore. Have you noticed? Like, they say, oh, but you know, it's for security. Security for what? You come up to the room and there's an empty fridge. So what? They actually don't trust their customers? They would think that as soon as I check into the hotel, I will run down to the bar, get drunk, and then leave the next day without paying. It's just weird. And this is what makes me so furious, because they're lying, and they're lying all over. They lie when they ask you for a deposit of 50 euros for security reasons, because it's not what it is. They want you to lend money to them. So they should actually be asking you, would you be kind enough to loan us 50 euros for a couple of days so we can get interest rate? No, they don't. They say they need a deposit for 50 euros for security reasons. When you question that, they will say, oh, but you know, it's if you want something from the restaurant, that's why we do it. So then you can just take it off that. Which is also another lie, because that's not how it works. Like I said, you're gonna have to pay that tab the next day before leaving, and then you're gonna get your deposit back later. I mean, what do you guys think about this? I want to hear from you really in the comment section. Is this really me overreacting? I think it's so weird, up to a point where I've actually stopped using Radisson now. Last time now, I stayed the night on my way back in Heathrow. And the funny thing is, So I was checking into Heathrow Airport on Radisson and they asked me for a deposit. And I say, no, I don't want to, because that's a scam. And then I don't have to pay it. Isn't it fantastic? So it's kind of when you expose them to it, you don't have to pay it. It's so weird. And I believe, like, well, but okay, but then you won't be able to have a bar tab. No, I don't need a bar tab. If I want to go to your bar, I can obviously pay for my tab with my card. I don't have to put it up on the room. Like they're saying all this weird shit, but still, I don't have to pay for it. And that's what I think you should do as well. You should start refusing them for a deposit. And also, I think, and I've actually contacted Booking, call me crazy, that should be said on the hotel site on Booking, because I really want to know if I have to put down a deposit, and if it would have said in the description of the hotel that, you know, underneath the our hotel is located in a beautiful area near local restaurants and blah blah blah, would say that, oh, and by the way, when checking in, we are going to ask you to lend us 50 euros for a couple of days as a deposit. Because then I would not choose that hotel, and that will make it easier for me as a customer. But obviously they won't, which is kind of weird, because that information to me is much more important than how many nice Italian restaurants are in the area, to be fair, because that shit I can just Google. Am I wrong here? Am I going nuts? Am I overreacting? What is your thoughts? I want to hear from you in the comment section. Thank you for listening to this show. I hope that this will be the last of these kind of shows. But however, this is a travel channel. And when I notice shit going on in the business, I will make videos like this, because I think it's just bullshit. I mean, it's just based out of lies for a huge company to get money from you and make interest. It's weird. It's just weird. In the end, however, always remember, it is not about the destination, it's what you make of it that counts. Till next time, stay safe. Yeah.